All right. So buckle up, people, because Jen and I were just talking and we asked the question, how weird can we get? How out there, how far out there can we take this conversation? And if you know one of us, both of us, either of us, you already know the answer, which is way freaking far.
Pretty far.
Pretty far. So buckle up. Let's get started. Before we get into this wild and crazy ride, Jenna, welcome. I'm so excited you're here. I laugh because you are iconic. And because of that, I'm like, oh, everybody knows Jenna, one name, Jenna. However, people are listening. I recognize perhaps don't yet, or maybe weirder in another lifetime they did. So let's start there. Let's start with this very 3D introduction of who you are and what you do.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. I am Jenna Brown, and I am a psychic business strategist and a subconscious healing expert. I will definitely get weird on this podcast recording, so you're welcome. And we probably do know each other in another lifetime or dimension. Probably halfway through this podcast, you'll be like, haven't I known this girl my whole life? Love that for us. And my favorite thing probably ever to talk about, activate people, women into, is into what I call the seventh dimension. And it is the seventh dimension, but if you've never heard of it, the seventh dimension, which is the overflow state. So we'll probably talk about that today, but yeah, that's my 3D intro.
I love it. And always I'm laughing. Many of us ask the question, where do we start? This could go in so many different directions. And I just got the answer. Well, we always start in the present moment. Hello, Dorothy of the Wizard of Oz. We start at the very beginning, right? We start in the present moment. So in this present moment, right now, for you, Jenna, what are you experiencing that feels both surprising and yet also, obviously, at the same time?
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, what I am experiencing right now, personally, in the present moment, is the result of practicing what I preach. And what really came through this morning is what I talk about when I talk about multidimensional living, multidimensional business, multidimensional offers, multidimensional marketing. Every single one of these things is a daily practice for me. Something like somebody would be practicing yoga, and I'm experiencing the result of practicing that for intentionally. I think I was doing it unintentionally before, but intentionally for at least the last year and a half. I am experiencing the result of that. I'm currently receiving the most amount of adoration and love and praise and feedback and breakthroughs of clients I've ever had. I just hosted a retreat that Jess was at last week with 16 people. I am experiencing people signing up for my work, literally everywhere, left and right. And I'm like, ah! And I just am sitting in my highest cash month ever, my highest sales month ever, my highest cash day ever, my highest sales day ever. And also at the same time, I just hosted this retreat. I'm living in freaking abundance land. And I'm still a human, I'm still living in my 3D. I have 3 kids. And so I'm still whoa, and hello, back to motherhood and back to client calls and back to all of this stuff. So it's just so fun for me because I'm experiencing what I've talked about for so long in a bigger way. I've experienced this in little bursts, and now I'm whoa, I'm actually really, really, really experiencing the fruit of my work. And not just experiencing it, but really being forced in the most loving way to receive it. And that feels strange and also really amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want everyone to hear that for a second, is time is not real. But when we think about, results happening, this is just another example of this trust and this commitment and this devotion to yourself and what you believe, regardless of what that is. There will be a moment like this, like what Jenna is experiencing right now in your life. And yet it requires this devotion, right? It requires this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just jam on this concept of, let's keep it simple for now, which is multidimensionality or being multidimensional. We've probably all heard this many times of, we are all multidimensional beings, or, one dimensional versus multidimensional. Take us through, like, what actually is multidimensional? What does that mean? What does that feel like?
Okay, love this. And I think when people like kind of throw around multidimensional, they're like, I'm multidimensional. Usually it's women that are saying that. I'm multidimensional. Like, I'm a mom and I'm a business owner and I'm a wife or whatever. Like, you're existing in multiple roles at the same time and you're like kind of going from one to the other. But the way that I want to talk about it is a little bit more nuanced, but also simple. And the fact of, we are multidimensional beings, meaning we are living in multiple dimensions at the same time. A lot of times people will be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go on this thing and then I'm going to access the 7D. And I'm like, that's goofy, because you could just like, you're already in the 7D. Like, you don't have to go somewhere to access the 7D, or like, you are existing in multiple dimensions at the same time. It's also like you're existing in multiple realities at the same time. You're like, let's keep it simple. I'm like, also, hi. You're existing in multiple realities at the same time. You're existing in multiple timelines at the same time. If our minds, which is just one dimension, our mind is in the dimension of the third dimension. So it's essentially receiving data, whether that's emotions or energy or whatever you're experiencing in life. And the mind is essentially the reader. It's reading the data and then it's assigning meaning to the data, okay? And most people live in the dimension of their mind. Now, I would say every human I work with, they are a little bit aware of more dimensions than just the mind or the logic or the ego. We also have the dimensions of our heart field, the quantum field, the energetic field. Obviously, you're listening to the Energetic Advantage podcast. Like, we're literally talking about how when you do things from an energetic standpoint first, it makes your life a whole freaking lot easier. But we also have dimensions like the astral dimension, the soul dimension, that's operating like right now. It's not something that you're only accessing when you go on a psychedelic trip, or you're like only when you're sleeping. Like, it's literally happening at all of the same time right now, because time isn't real. And all to try to put that simply again back into a box, like, you are a multidimensional being living in multiple dimensions at the same time. And at any given moment, you may be aware of one, or maybe two, or maybe three, or maybe 47, probably not. I've never been aware of 47 dimensions at the same time. I feel like I would spontaneously combine.
Yes.
Dimensions at the same time. And you're weaving through them, like, but you're not like going into multiple like different dimensions. You're just weaving your awareness through the different dimensions at different times. Does that answer your question?
It does. And when did that awareness, because it has always existed, right? Mm-hmm. When did that awareness happen for you? I'm just super curious, like, where that really started, or when you became aware of it.
I feel like, honestly, when I was a kid, when I think back, like, I could say like the codes of what has dropped in and how I teach it has been more in the last 2 years or so. But when I look back to being a kid, I was just aware of all of the things all of the time. So I would meet people and just know things about them. And I would see their face like wince a certain way. And I'd be like, oh, this dude's cheating on this woman. And my mom would be like, you can't say that. And then a year later, I'd be like, oh, he was cheating on her the whole time. There's just so many things I knew that I was like, how do I know this? So many energies I was experiencing. So when I look back when I was a kid, it was like, I always feel like I was so connected to source, and I was trying to figure out language for what that meant. And so I had like my whole lifetime up until I was 29 and had a near-death experience I was uber religious. And it was like, that was the only kind of container I could find that was like fitting for what I was experiencing. Like, I was seeing miracles. I was seeing like crazy shit happen that like normal people aren't seeing every day. And I was seeing potentialities in the field, but I was like, I didn't have language. I was just like seeking language. But when I think back, I like always knew that I think this is just what I came in with. Like, these are the codes that have always been within me. And over time, they felt safer to express more and more and more.
Yeah. I love that because I know that's something that everyone can resonate with is having this awareness, and what we're not lacking the awareness, but sometimes it's the language that is hard for us to find. And, I'll share with you a little bit about how you found your language to this, but let's expand this concept of language. Yes, language can be words, but language can also be modalities. Of course, it could be numerology, it could be astrology, it could be sacred geometry, it could be like there are limitless possibilities of what your language is. And I just want to remind you that it's not that you suddenly got this gift or had this thing happen to you. It's like you found the language.
Yep.
And so therefore, there's no time that needs to be spent learning more, figuring it out. It's just, no, what's the language here? Like, how can I, if I'm wanting to bring this out into the world, like, how can I share that? So let's go to that moment of having this knowing, having this awareness, and then when did the language for this drop in?
So I would say the language for this has dropped in multiple different times. Like, I think back even to my religious days, and I would always explain things in threes, which to me, 3 is my favorite number.
Yes.
Jess knows this. And I would explain things in threes, and it would be like the way I would experience people was they were relating to 3 different energies. And then I would be like, oh, I can see like where you're off in the way that you're relating to these energies. And I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, this is wild that no matter like what hat I've had on, I like have spoken the same language. Like I've seen people in the same way. They relate to this feminine energy or this masculine energy or this like friendship energy differently. And I used to relate it to different things, but that's always been with me. Then I would say in my near-death experience, like that is for sure 100% when the language for me of the 7th dimension came through. So the 7th dimension, because everybody's probably like, what is this chick talking about? The 7th dimension is the dimension where there's no separation. So it is Christ consciousness dimension, but it's not like the energy of Christ Savior dimension. It's like I am God dimension, meaning what I am seeing out in my reality is a reflection of me and vice versa. There's no like hierarchy. There's no us and them. There's no right and wrong. It's this energy of like just total peace and awareness and beingness. And I didn't have awareness of that until I had my near-death experience. And I was literally living just purely in the 7th dimension. So if you've ever seen when people die, or heard that when people die, they release DMT, which I think is the coolest thing ever. And essentially what it's helping them do is like the ego is dissolving, and that's natural. That's not like they're not doing drugs. Like that is how our brains work. And their ego is dissolving, I think, for that sensation of like, it feels totally safe for me to move purely into soul form, right? And I had that experience. So I had that experience where I was releasing DMT, I'm assuming. I mean, I wasn't having like that, watched or something. But I'm assuming that's what was happening because that's what everybody describes. And I was going to leave, and I was just in the soul dimension, and it was ultimate peace, and it was ultimate understanding of who I am. And I woke up and I was different. And the best way I can describe it is just that illusion of separation was no longer there. So I no longer could be religious because religion is based off of, I need this higher power to help me or save me. And I was like, oh, I don't need a savior. So I don't know what to do with that. And that all dissolved in 5 seconds. And then also I was also running a nonprofit at the time, and that dissolved because like in a second, because I realized that energetic where that was coming from was I'm saving other people. And so that all dissolved. It was like poof. And then it was like, well, what do I do now? And it didn't matter because it was no longer about the doing. It was about the being. Anyway, so that was like a huge recoding for me where the language was less of like you were saying, it wasn't like, here's how I'm talking about it. It was just like this upgrade of my cells and my DNA. And it was just like, and now a vibration I was carrying. So now anybody that works with me is like, that's the dominant vibration I give. I know that's what they're attracted to. And I don't even really have to say much because it's the activation in my field that they get just being there.
Yeah.
Now, when I say like, how did this all kind of come into form where now this is something I'm teaching or helping people build businesses through, that would be like in the last 2 years. And it wasn't a moment, but it was like a moment in time, if that makes sense. It wasn't like, and then this moment happened and I was like in the whole thing and I just stayed up for 15 hours writing on this piece of paper. It was actually through one of my mentors, Rachel. She had told me, hey, I'm like do you read sacred geometry? And immediately I was like, yes, of course. And she was like, oh, okay, what are you doing with that? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And I had just started to play with it more. And Jessica was actually the first person I just put it out on socials where I was like, hey, I'm doing these sacred geometry readings. I want to play with it. It's free. If you are here in your business, just DM me. I want to do it. And she was one of those people. And I did this reading for her and she came back and she was like, what the heck, Jenna Brown? She was like, I have been seeing this image come to me for months now and I didn't know what it meant. And you basically saw the exact same image without me telling you that. Put this image out there and then also decoded the whole entire thing of what it meant for me and my business. And that's where it all really started to click and unravel, that I was like, oh, it's kind of like, I just did this for a girl at my retreat. She starts describing to me what she was experiencing. And I'm like, oh, you read auras. Did you know that? And she's like, wait, no. And I'm like, yeah, you're reading auras. What color is my aura? And she's like, yellow, question mark. And I'm like, yeah, my aura is yellow. And it's almost like when somebody gives you language for something you've always experienced, but you didn't know that's what you were experiencing until they like give it a name. And for me, that is how the sacred geometry activation was for me, that I was like, oh my God, I've always seen sacred geometry. That's always how I've seen everything. I see it as a field and I see this person interacting with their field. Their awareness of the field might be different, but then I started to realize, oh, our field is made up of multiple dimensions. And if they're all moving at the same time, then the field is moving and women can finally freaking relax and they can be centered and grounded, but their business is like holding them and they don't feel like they're holding their business. It was like this whole just unraveling that happened there.
Yeah. And it's so funny because I didn't really, clue into this part of that story and that concept until right now, which I think is, if I'm honest, a lot of what holds people back is the ego. So I just want to go back to that sacred geometry between you and I, right? Because here's a little bit more of the backstory. I had been seeing this image. I had been drawing it. I literally bought 2 books. I still have them, all about sacred geometry. I brought them to Sedona. Like I was literally studying, okay? And obviously, I'm not a mathematician, but so much of my work is about numbers, is about patterns, right? And the ego says, I should be able to figure this out. And so when Jenna puts up, hey, I'm playing with this thing, sacred geometry, what made me put up my hand is that is 7th dimension because there is no hierarchy in this. And I think a lot of times I'm just realizing it. This is what holds us back. When we have something that we think we should be able to do, or here's another kicker, that we actually do for other people. Our mind tells us, well then, duh, you don't need anyone else to do it. But there is no need in the 7th dimension. There is want. In that moment, I wanted that. My ego had nothing to say because, well, obviously it was a 7th dimension connection. And so I just want to share that because when you are in that 7th dimensional field, it is sometimes a little bit unnerving for people because there is no structure that feels comfortable to us. And yet, if you can allow yourself to access it, that's where kind of that resonance lands. Okay, I want to bring this back. So we talked a little bit about the 3D. We've talked about the 7D. I'm laughing. I hope everyone can hear my sarcasm in this question. Let's talk about your favorite dimension, Jenna, AKA not her favorite, but we're going to talk about it anyway. Just jam a little bit on the 5th dimension. Here's also a fun fact is I think many of you know listening to the podcast, my brain works really fast, recognizing future patterns. And yet when I'm speaking with Jenna, I am a literal sloth. She is very quick. But I'm like, okay, I already know where we want to take this. But first, let's help people ground into what the 5D is.
Yeah. Okay, I love it. So 3D is logic, ego. It's the language of what you need, what you think you're separate from. So, it's like really like goals. I'm like, if we're talking to people in business, it's like you setting goals is like 100% you using your logic brain, which we love. I'm not saying get rid of that. I'm just telling you that's the 3D, baby. Your 7D is like your soul. It's like what's happening and you don't even realize that your soul has you on this path and it is moving you through these activations and frequencies and identity upgrades, essentially. The 5th dimension is the bridge between the two. And a lot of people think that we're like leaving the 3rd dimension to go to the 7th dimension. That's what awakening the masses is. That's not what's happening. What will be happening, just so we're all aware, is we're souls experiencing being human. Like we're literally God being like, I wonder what it would be like to pretend I'm not God. And then remember I'm God and then forget again and then remember again. Like that is why we chose to be human. We wanted to experience suffering. We wanted to experience happiness and joy. We wanted to experience polarity. And so a lot of people, spiritual teachers will teach, oh, we're leaving the 3rd dimension, but all you get are people that are completely disembodied, disassociated, and fucking flying on clouds. They have $0 and they're living in vans and they probably live in Sedona. That's where I live, Arizona. I live in Sedona, Arizona, right? And that is also not the point. And I am such a person of I can hold the highest frequency of we are literal God. And I can also be like, I want to make $100,000 this month. Like I can live in both because I am such a firm believer that like we came to experience both. We came to experience and hold all of that, like at the same time. I am a human and I am also God. Okay.
Yep.
Anyways, so the bridge is not, you're not crossing over the bridge is what I want to say. You're not going from like, oh, I finally awakened into God consciousness and now I'm just going to float in the sky all day and not care about anything, money or anything. And it's no, actually, 5th dimension is what is holding both of these dimensions here for you. Now, why Jess is like your favorite is it's not my favorite.
Spoiler.
It's in between, right? And I a lot of times would rather experience just like full ass ego, let's solve a problem, or like full ass I'm floating on clouds in the 7th dimension on mushrooms. But like the 5th dimension is this bridge in between, and it is really the language of the heart. And also that's why I resisted as well, because it's emotional. And I don't know about you, but my whole childhood, I was told like, you should be less emotional. And so, emotional is messy. And like the emotional realm is there is expectation there and it's never linear. So 3D, I know what to expect because it's linear. If I say, hi, come into my masterclass, it's pretty straightforward. And you're coming into my masterclass, it's 3D, I'm solving a problem and I'm going to have 75 people in there. When I say 5D, I always talk about it as like it creates this energy in your field that's like the ping pong effect, where it's people are going into your 3D things. So that could be like a workshop, a masterclass, a process that you have downloaded that people are coming into. But it also is pinging people into the more 7D things. So your mastermind, your long-term one-on-one, your philanthropy movements, like whatever that looks like for you. And 5D can get a little frustrating because we want to use our linear brain to see if it's working or not. But we actually have to use the emotional field to see if it's working or not. And it's obnoxious if you've spent a lifetime avoiding the emotional field, which most of us have.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I think that is the biggest takeaway that I want to like hone in on with a real life, tangible 3D example of what you said before is multidimensionality. I think a big miss is what you said before is like that we go from one to the other. I'm many things, but I'm only one thing at one time. Whereas multidimensionality is in all of the fields or being all at the same time. And, we're talking about this as like multidimensionality in humans and in business, but there are also multidimensionality in experiences. And it's funny, I didn't tell you I was going to tell you this because it's just coming through right now. Yeah. But so for example, this retreat that Jenna just hosted, okay, So yes, it was fully encoded in that 7D. The intention and the overarching dimension there was the 7D. And yet, if Jenna had just created the retreat as a pure 7D experience, it would not have landed. So in your mind, I just want everyone to think this, feeling into what Jenna talked about with the 3D, 5D, and 7D. Okay, so in a retreat, in an experience, or any event that you have ever gone to, all of these dimensions matter. And what this looks like in real life is 3D is the physical, the environment, right? The Airbnb that Jenna chose to host in it, the food, right? The private chef that she had, the lighting, the room, like the body experience. The 3D is required to ground you in. And we've all been to these places where we might have had this beautiful feel, frequency experience, and the food sucked, or it was dirty, or it wasn't as elevated. And that diminishes the experience, no matter how amazing that 7D experience is. Yeah. So then we go to the 5D, which is, again, this emotional connection, which is the conversations, right? The heart connection between the women that were there. And the way I felt you curated that is by intentionally choosing the hearts, right? The energy that came together. And of course, the 7D, the frequency, the unspokenness, right? That's something in the room that you can't quite pinpoint, but you can just feel. And so thank you for, doing that and giving everyone a tangible example of what this actually means in real life, because now our logical brain can say, okay, great. So if the 3D was on point, beautiful venue, amazing food, but like the conversations were like surface level and flat, AKA missing the 5D, like, not gonna work. If there was great conversations, but again, like the space was draining or chaotic or, whatever, not gonna work. And then again, like with this really beautiful resonance, but no kind of structure to hold it, like it has to be multidimensional. And I think this takes us to this other part of multidimensionality, is this myth or this story that we tell ourselves that multidimensionality equals more. So can you riff on that a little bit about, like, you said it earlier, like actually multidimensionality is simpler, but our mind makes it more. Yeah, jam on that, because that concept is coming through strongly as a really strong reframe for people.
Yeah. I don't know if I would say it's not more or it's less, but what I would say is it's just smarter. Because I guess like that's the word I want to bring through instead. Yeah. Because here's what most people would say, at least when it comes to a business, is if we're talking to someone with an online business, most business coaches are going to tell you to create a really long ass runway. So they're going to be like, what you need to do is, they're always keeping you waiting, like this energy of first you have to build your email list. Then you're going to bring a freebie to your email list. And then after the freebie is there, then you're going to convert people into your low ticket, mid ticket offer. And then after they've been with you for a year, then you can introduce a mastermind. And they're like creating this really long, like linear experience. And what I like to do is fold all of that on top of each other. So it's not like maybe somebody's mind would register as like, she's telling me to do more. It's maybe, but what I'm actually doing is I'm telling you that you can do it all at the same time, but you have to also have access to the 7D. You already have access. You have to be aware of who you are as a person to expand your capacity to let that all be happening at the same time. So it's almost like, I have this belief that I think women tell themselves a story that they are overwhelmed and they're busy. And so what they try to do is make there be less noise. Okay. Like They have kids and they have a life and they're like, everything's happening. And so it's like, they try to make it be like there's less noise. Like they're trying to remove, a lot of people will be like, remove all of the things and just do one thing. And that is how you're successful. In my experience for multidimensional women, at least, that is the last thing I've ever told them, because when they do that, it actually is creating, one, like this waiting effect. Two, it's creating expectation and like a lot of energy around one thing.
Yep.
And three, they also kind of get put in a box and then they feel like they can't express themselves. So it's not that it's not more, because maybe it does feel like that to somebody who's like, all I'm doing right now is I post once a week on social media and I have a masterclass once every 3 months. And I'm like, yeah, if you actually want to experience the multidimensional compound effect, you have to like upgrade your reality to be able to essentially allow more input to flow through. So what I experienced, and I feel like I was a great example of this last week in my retreat, because I did this all at the same time. So I wasn't like, what I'm going to do is just run my retreat and check out of everything else, which is what most people do. They're like, I'm going to focus on this one thing, because they assume if they're holding multiple things at the same time, it's going to lose its potency. Yep. But in my experience, if you hold multiple things at the same time, they all feed into each other. And then it creates this vortex that makes you so freaking magnetic. It's like unexplainable. So for me, just to like tangibly say, well, how did you do that? Last week, the week of whatever that was, mid-April, I was doing a free challenge behind the scenes in Telegram on main character energy. It was free. I had people in there. I was doing daily trainings in there and a little coaching. I had a retreat that would be 3D. I had a retreat that was going, like literally happening, and that was very much in the 7D. If you do them the way I do them, which I guess most people don't, but they're very in the 7th dimension. If you're doing like a conference, it's very like 5D-ish, because you're like teaching people. There's a hierarchy. You're like, I know more than you and I'm teaching you, and come here. So I had that operating. Then I was enrolling people into my high-level mastermind. And I also had people that were coming into one-on-one. And I also had people coming into my 5th dimension offer, which is a long-term membership. So I had all of that happening the exact same week. For one, this is why I have a team. Like, I feel like that needs to be said. I actually couldn't do all of that by myself, just so we're clear. That is why I have a team. Two, this is like offers that I have built up over time. So it didn't require that I was like, oh, I'm pulling all of this out of my ass to talk about. Like, they're all things that have been there. And they all fed into each other. I was on the training talking to my 3D, like to my 3D audience there. But like, I'm talking about things I'm doing at my retreat. So then, and I was also selling my retreat, the next retreat. So then I was like, they were all feeding into each other, and it created this vortex that I was like, holy shit, for all the girls who are trying to quote unquote regulate their nervous systems for success, let me tell you, that's not what it felt like. It felt like I was like, I am literally in this vortex tornado I created, and I'm just receiving. Like, my job is just to receive. My job is just to receive here. So I guess all to say, it's not always like that. Like, it's not like that's my day every single week or something. But like I was just sharing, I've been at this tipping point where it was like, oh my God, now it's my capacity keeps expanding to receive more and more. So it's not that it's not more, it's just that it's smarter, because they're all feeding into each other, and it creates this vortex effect that like, I really didn't have to do much. I feel like you have to do more when you're like, let me prove to you through my sales page and my 47 sales emails. Like, I didn't even have sales emails. I didn't even have a freaking sales page for my next retreat, and it's almost sold out. I wasn't even offering one-on-one, and people reached out to me and bought one-on-one. Does that make sense? It is so much easier because I didn't have to prove it and I didn't have to hustle for it. It just created this vortex, and then it all landed.
And I just love this, because this is where, again, being in all of these dimensions at once, you're allowing the energy to flow freely through everything. Imagine if we had containers, right? Or we are compartmentalizing, and that same amount of energy is running through us. That's where you feel like that balloon is about to pop, because you are placing this circle or structure or container around it, trying to keep it there. When we know energy, money, all of these things just want to flow. They want to move. And it's when we try to restrict them, that's actually when it starts to feel, you can have the same amount of energy, the same amount of money. When you allow it to flow more freely, it doesn't feel like overwhelming, because you're not trying to constrict it. You're not trying to hold it, right? You're just allowing it to flow.
And I'm just not convinced that women are not, I'm speaking to women when I say this, like we are not linear beings. Like we're literally portals. Hi. Like we are different than men. I'm sure you probably know that on a conscious level, but like on an unconscious level, I literally was fit to have a soul and a spirit come into a human body that I didn't even know I knew how to create, but my body technology knew how to create a fucking human and put a soul and a spirit into a human in my body. Like that is so wild. It will never not be wild to me. I've done that 3 times and I still can't believe it.
Yep.
And clearly I have access to more than my husband. Like he can access it on some level, but he is more linear and grounded and he's meant to be that way. But like I am already operating in dimensions that if I actually understood in my little brain who I actually was and what I was actually doing, it would probably freak me the fuck out. So I'm just so not convinced that women need less stimulation. And I am so convinced with my whole being that women are fucking bored and they're doing business like men are doing it because men taught business for so long and it had to be linear and it had to be like dot your I's and cross your T's. But I'm like, if women go into creation energy, it feels like, surprise, chaos, because that's creation energy. And if they go into that energy and stop telling themselves the lie that they don't know how to flow through massive amounts of energy moving through their field, like you literally know how to like, how did I get a soul in a body? I don't even like, how did I do that? I did that unconsciously. I wasn't thinking now it's time to put a soul in a body. Here's how we do it. A plus B. Like I didn't even think that my body knew how to do that. My being that's existing in multiple dimensions right now knew how to do that. And even if you don't have children and you're a woman, that is who you are. Like that is how crazy powerful we are. So I'm just so not convinced. I'm never convinced that women are afraid of more. I am convinced that they are afraid of their own power. And like they're actually going to see what they're capable of and they're going to be like, what am I? Like,
yeah. And it just goes to show you how it's so funny because I was telling you before we started talking that this word kept coming up for me before we got on this conversation, which is a myth. And maybe we can even change that to a belief. Like a belief or a myth is when like we're trying to make meaning of something. And it helps us, right? It helps us, simplify things in our brain. It helps us create this shared understanding. It helps us feel a sense of certainty because that's what we're craving. But over time, kind of that story starts to harden or starts to solidify. And it started as, okay, this is a way to explain something or a way to understand something. But then the more that it hardens or the more we repeat it or the more that it's ingrained in us, it becomes like, this is just how it is, right? And so that's why beliefs or myths are powerful. And yet they can also be like the exact thing that's holding us back. And also they are invisible to the person holding them because like we don't question it. Like we build on top of it, right? You know that game when your kids of like, you finish each other's stories and you just take that as truth and then you build and then you build and then you build. So there's so many, I think this is what I love, one of the many reasons why I love you, but also what I think you are insanely good at, which is spotting that in women. And even when they come to you with the most confident, smart sounding, monologue or belief or myth from their brain, you can spot that and help them question it. So I just want you to riff on what is one of those stories or myths or beliefs, whatever you want to say, that you feel is really coming up for a lot of women right now. And what would you say to that? How would you help them start questioning that?
There's so many.
I know.
I would say like, this is the path to freedom. Like what you're saying in general is just like mind assigns meaning and the meaning creates the emotion. And so if the meaning is creating suffering and I can tell this is creating this block sensation or it's creating this like heaviness for the client, then I just am like, cool, what is the meaning they're giving this thing? And then I'm just going to change the meaning and it will immediately clear it up for them where they're going to feel lighter and free and then energy can move. It's not magic. It's actually science, but it feels magical when it happens.
does.
And I would say when I think of what I'm seeing and experiencing a lot, it brings me back to the only direction I got for that whole retreat, by the way. I had the structure and all I knew was create space and I would just flow in it and know what to do when I was in the middle of it. But the only thing I had going into there of what we were going to talk about was this one phrase, which was worry is distracting you from receiving. And it keeps coming up for me with a lot of clients and I keep seeing it. And I think that we a lot of times have been shown, like I always say, women who are successful, our scarcity is not around money. Our scarcity is usually around our energy and what we perceive we can actually do, like with our energy. Anyways, what I find is that I keep seeing this where women keep themselves in a loop where they're worrying about this thing, whether it's their relationship or they're worrying about this thing in their business or they're worrying about their kids. And it's this energy loop that they're getting off on because it's this safe little container of if I worry about this, then I have something to fix. I have a problem I have to fix. And when we go into like our fixer, especially those of us who are hi, I'm a firstborn daughter. I'm love to fix. Like, why am I even doing this? Is because my whole childhood I was like, oh, what is wrong with people and how do I fix them? AKA my parents. So hi, that's why I'm good at what I do. And then it became about fixing myself. And I think that what I see is this energy of continual, I don't know who I am if I'm not fixing a problem. And so it gets absurd when you experience so much abundance in your life. So if, for instance, like I have an amazing marriage, I'm an amazing mother, I have an incredible community, I make so much money. I like live, not just make money and I'm hustling. I'm like making money and I'm fucking like just chilling. I mean, I'm still working hard, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of wild what my work hard is compared to most people. And so it gets absurd to watch the loops in my mind or in other women who are similars mind where you're like, this is so wild that you're making up this whole entire thing so you can go into fix a problem energy when there's literally no problem. Like there is no problem to be fixed. And who are you, which is an identity, if you are no longer fixing a problem? And that energy for me is everything because that right there is the activation into overflow.
Yeah.
Because survival patterning and why most of us are successful in business or even trying to build a business is because we're trying to fix a problem. I'm trying to make money. I'm trying to like whatever that problem is for you. I'm trying to not go back to corporate or whatever. And then you fix the problem and you keep fixing problems. And after a while, you're kind of like, why would I even want more? What would make me go beyond this moment? And I get that question all the time because that's a question of the soul. Why would I want more? And you can't access that more, the answer to that question, until you move into overflow. And the patterning and really the identity that keeps women in survival is the identity of there's a problem and I have to fix it. And it feels scary to let go of that identity or just integrate it because you don't have to let go of it. You know, we're not burning her or anything. We're grateful. But that identity of she no longer can drive the car of your life. Like to me, I'm always like, she drove me here and I'm so freaking grateful. But like, she really can't drive me there because that energy of where I'm trying to go is the energy of receiving. I'm receiving and I'm literally, I could cry because I'm so proud of myself. I feel like I'm a shining example of I'm actually just receiving. Like I am receiving right now and this is freaking wild. Like my mind is still doing its things. I'm still like, what can I sabotage today? But like my overarching energetic in my life right now is I'm receiving and I'm noticing where the worry loop is distracting me from receiving. So anytime my mind starts to go or a client's mind starts to go in this random weird ass invisible loop of what problem can I fix? I'm just like, this is just distracting you from receiving. Because right now, what are you not receiving? So even anybody listening, if that's hitting you, you're welcome. And two, it is when you're starting to worry, you're going into the thought loop and you're trying to fix the problem. What are you avoiding receiving right now?
Yeah. I love that. And that is just really that language. And again, if you're kind of trying to feel into that. Notice your language. If you're saying like, I need to, or I have to, that is definitely a sign in your language pattern that you're in that energy versus like, why? Because I want to, because wow, like I get to do this. How cool is this? And I laugh. We promised we'd get weird. And I was like, I wonder how we're going to get weird. But it just kind of like landed here. Okay. So sometimes it's like when we talked about this, about like how sometimes it takes someone else mirroring something back to us to understand like the absurdity and like kind of having to laugh at ourselves of, oh my gosh, like how in all of this am I still doing this? So random, but not random. Do you think other dimensional beings are just like laughing, not at us, but I think like with us right now to be like, whoa, people, what is that connection? What can we learn? Or what is possible when we like engage with other beings in this multidimensional field?
Okay, you may or may not like what I have to say, but I don't think that they aren't us. So I truly, in seventh dimensional consciousness, this trips people out. It trips me out. Especially if I have like microdose mushrooms, I feel like I trip because I'm like, ah, like it's almost like the mirror keeps folding in on itself and I'm like, ah. But I really believe that what I am seeing is a reflection of me. Like, I don't even think that's like a cute thing to say. I wish I didn't believe that sometimes because I'm like, ew, I have to like take responsibility for so much. But I believe that like in the core of who I am, I continue to come back to life is mirroring me. Mm-hmm. And also, I think that humans, most of them we're all fractals of the same thing. Like we're all universe, God, source energy, experiencing like different dimensional aspects, like looking at each other and being like, oh, we're the same. And then it's like, there's this core though, is if you put us all together, we're all the same thing. And I feel the same way I think that aliens, multidimensional beings, ETs, I think they are us on other timelines that we are experiencing higher vibrations of ourselves and higher frequencies of ourselves. But our mind can't really wrap around the fact, again, that we are existing as multiple different beings at the same time. I am you, you are me, but I also am like the ETs that I met and engaged with. And also, I don't think that they're like, they came from here to save us or something. I think like we're just telling ourselves that story because if we actually understood that this is us, it would be, again, like we're way more afraid of our power than we are of that story. Because that story feels like it's us and them and it's separate and I am channeling them, but really what if I'm just channeling myself?
I love that because this is where, at least in my experience, where I realize that I am like capping my capacity or I'm not there yet is when I ask myself like, does this make sense? Or this makes sense? Then I'm like, oh, that's not it. Because if it makes sense, then I know there's more to learn. I don't know if I ever shared this with you. I'm working, one of my clients, there's a team, and they pay me $25 every time someone asks someone in that group, hey, does this make sense?
Oh, yeah, you have told me this. I love it. They pay you $25?
Yeah.
That's a ball and move.
Because it's like, I really want to help them break that habit. And so actually, I think that's a really cool realization for everyone listening. How many times a day or how often do you ask someone else or you ask yourself after you've just kind of thought about something or shared something, hey, does this make sense? And I want you to stop, drop, and roll. Stop, laugh, put a quarter in the jar, like the swear jar or whatever, because that is just a clear indicator of there is more. If I'm asking myself if this makes sense, I'm like, oh, there's more to that. So I love that what you said to me makes zero sense because I'm like, well, then, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
There you go.
Also, I think that could not be true. I feel like the thing for me is I always tell people like my belief system is not set in stone. And sometimes I believe it and then other times I don't. And I think that is like so freeing for me.
100%.
Place where it was like, spend your whole life trying to figure out the quote unquote right belief system. But like for me, my like beliefometer is like what feels fun and more mysterious. I'm always going to lean towards that more than being like, well, this is what I read in a history book when I was in 4th grade. Like I just will never probably choose that option. So for me, I always am going for that energy. Well, that feels fun. And so like I'm choosing to believe that right now. And then I'm also going to see, because your beliefs are shaping your reality. Well, how does that shape my reality? Sometimes I might outgrow that belief and be like, no, that was kind of hindering me. And other times I'm like, actually, that is so freeing because I just can do whatever the fuck I want and stop thinking like people have to help me. I don't know. So
And
also
that,
saying that could serve you and that could feel fun. But also, I'm not like the book of right or wrong beliefs. These are just things you could try on and see how it expands you. And if it does, then move with it.
I love that because, again, that's that true indicator of 7th dimension, right? You know, being willing and open to change your mind. That's hard. The ego hates that because when you change your mind, if you think it in a linear way, that means that what you thought before was wrong. And we don't like to be wrong, but let's erase that, right? Let's like just be willing to stay in this present moment in all dimensions and believe what we believe and let that be to creation. And if we don't like what we're creating, we can just shift it.
Literally. In a moment.
In the moment. In the moment. So speaking of the present moment, oh my God, like time always is like not real. I'm like, wait, what time did we start? How long?
Hour? It feels like 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. But I do, because always this is where, no pressure, but this is always where the gold is. Just kidding.
Love that.
In this present moment, just tapping into your own energetic advantage, what you know that you are uniquely here to do and be and share. Is there anything coming through that you would like to share that we haven't talked about yet today?
I feel like it's what I'm not saying. And that to me is so fun to leave everyone with, because what I would point you to is to not listen with your ears, but listen to your frequency. And just how do you feel right now at the end of this podcast listening versus the beginning when you started listening? And I would just say, I talked a bunch of like mumbo jumbo stuff that like linear maybe made no sense to you, but your activation has already begun. And that being said, if it's not about what I'm saying, it's about what I'm transmitting, and I believe that, how powerful can your work be in the world when you stop thinking it's about what you're saying and are you doing it the right way or the wrong way, but if you trusted that that frequency was not just enough, but it was the whole point.
Boom.
That's
Done. Thank you. You're welcome. All the things. So if people are feeling this feeling, like how can they feel more of it? Tell us what you have to share and where they can reach you. We'll put everything in the show notes, but again, sometimes transmission is the best. So I'd love for you to share.
For sure. So I have a lot of programs that are like private podcast feeds. They're my favorite. I feel like they're just like me in your pocket. Like you pull me out and then it's let me just rewire your mind in a moment. Let me give you a perspective for a moment. And I've created one. I just finished it. It's 27 episodes or something. It's quite hefty. It's called Overflow Encoded, where it's all of these codes of overflow. I've been building it over the last 4 months. It's incredible and rewires you as you're listening to it. And I have a free preview of that. So I want to say there's at least 4 episodes that are in that free preview that you can listen to and really, I'm not even going to say chew on. You don't even have to think about it. Just listen to them and see what happens. But that whole entire private podcast is for you to recode into overflow and literally be the being that's living in the 7th dimension more often than not. And from that perspective, driving your car. And yeah, we'll drop that in the show notes for you.
Awesome. And also give Jenna a follow on social media. The highest praise I can give anyone is Jenna is the only person that I listen to with sound on. And I don't care if she doesn't have captions or not.
Thank you. Thank you. That is the highest praise.
Seriously, if you know me, I don't put my earphones in for just anybody.
You don't even watch anybody.
I don't watch anybody.
3 people.
Yes, 3. There you go. My top 3. Thank you for your generosity, for sharing. And, I'm laughing because I could thank you for all of the things you do, but it was so interesting after the retreat and just on a daily basis. I just always, okay, here it is. I'm like, can I get through a podcast episode without crying with guests that I love? No. It's just what I really want to thank you for is being you. Thank you. And I would like to pay this forward. Anyone listening, I want you to feel into your life, the people that you are connected with, and really thank them for and be so grateful, not just for what they do or what they offer, but more importantly, who they are. And if you can do that for others, I guarantee you can do that for yourself. And that really is my hope for everybody, to really celebrate and appreciate and love yourself for who you are. And if you can do that for others, bonus points. Bonus points on a Wednesday. So everyone go do that. Thank you, Jenna. We'll put everything in the show notes. And I'll see you next time on The Energetic Advantage. Thanks,
you.
Jenna.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.